Well, welcome back to the CBTD YouTube channel. We're here today with Glen Schmidt. He's the committee chairman of our budget audit committee, and want to talk to Glen a little bit today about the budget process. Maybe Glen, share with us kind of the budget process for the Transit District Board and organization.
Well, just briefly, the finance staff goes through during the year. They're always analyzing what's happening during the year, and then toward probably mid-year or so, they're looking more closely at everything and seeing what's out there and analyzing how things are going. And they also kind of gather together some ideas for the next year, what might be needed, if there's anything new or just continuing on, increased prices, those sorts of things. And they also meet with department managers, I know, and to assess the needs that might be out there in the department, so they're aware of what's going on there, and the things that might impact the budget. And then they prepare a tentative budget, and it has to be balanced, meaning that the revenues have to equal the expenses. And they then put together a proposal for the next year.
Great. So at what point, I guess, we're developing that budget, does it come to the board, and really what's that process, how that's presented to the board?
Well, shortly before the September meeting, the board meets monthly, and shortly before the board meeting, the budget audit committee usually meets together with Todd and Curtis, to go through a budget review and to see what's there. And they will at that time kind of propose a tentative budget for the next year. Of course, it's early in the year and won't have everything tied down, but they have a pretty good idea of what's going to be needed for the next year. And so they'll propose that to the committee, and then that will be presented. After that review, it's usually presented to the board in September, so that they have kind of a nice few weeks to be able to review it before the end of the year, and it has to be approved.
And so when is the timeline for the board to approve? I guess there's a tentative budget approval and then there's a final budget approval. What are those timelines?
Right. So after September, the board reviews that. They'll look at it. If they have questions, of course, they can ask them at the meeting, or anytime can ask Curtis or you, and determine what's there. But the timeline, the state has set a timeline that we must approve a tentative budget by November. Our November meeting is when we set a tentative budget, which means that it's tentative because then the public needs to have a chance to review it and see if they have any questions. And so at that time, we approve a tentative budget. We also set time to have a public hearing, which is a month later in December. And then as well, it has to be advertised that we're going to have it so that people know about it. And so they know the date and the time of when that's going to occur and where. And then in December, at our meeting there, the meeting is opened up for a public hearing so that any member of the public can come in and they can make comments or suggestions or have questions about something. They can do that, and we have an appropriate time there for that. Honestly, we haven't had very many come to those, but the opportunity is there, and that is set by law that we have to do that. And then after that, then it's brought back to the board and they discuss it. If they have any questions, they may have some amendments that they want to make to it, and then those are discussed. And then at when everything's finally set, then somebody calls for a vote, and then we vote to approve or disapprove, and hopefully we'll always approve it because we have to have it approved so that we can have a budget for the next year, which is the calendar year.
So you mentioned there that the board can have amendments or changes. So the board has the ability to ask staff to change anything in the budget or to cut budget or anything like that.
Or sure, yeah, they can do it or add things, and there may be something come up. And the staff has the opportunity as well to say, hey, since we proposed this, we've just found out in the last couple of weeks that such and such cost has gone up or something, or there's something that's in our system that's broken, have some equipment that's broken, maybe we need to address that, those sorts of things. And so then they can do that, and so we approve that. And bringing that up during the year, if something happens, then the budget can be amended, and the same sort of thing will happen there. If there's an amendment, then it goes to the board, and there has to be some sort of a public hearing there as well, that people can comment on it. And along with that, those things have to be made available to the public beforehand so they can review it to see if they have any questions.
Yeah.
And so those are how amendments happen as well.
Well, that's one thing that I think that I've appreciated. So the budget audit committee is a committee of the board members, and Glen's our chair. But over the years, you guys have recommended that we have some workshops, and so even in August and September, we've kind of put together these workshops where I know we encourage board members to come and really dive into that and ask questions. And I found those to be helpful. I mean, we've got some great questions from board members, and it helps us to know what's important to communicate maybe a little bit deeper or something like that. So I've enjoyed that.
Right, that's been very, very helpful, and it gives us the time. So it takes time to do those sorts of deep dives, and so we set those times apart, separate from our board meetings, so that we can do those deep dives and maybe ask some more important questions, more detailed questions, so that we don't have to do that in the board meeting. But then we can report back to the board meeting and say, this is, give a summary of what has happened, and if there are any amendments that we want to make, or just to give information about something that has general interest to people of what's happening in the budget.
Oh, that's great. So I think that's a pretty good synopsis of the budget process. I know that we have this budget audit committee, so maybe talk to us about the audit committee side of the function on that.
Well, as people are certainly aware, we get audited every year, just like most companies do, but government, it's required that we be audited every year by an independent auditor. And so that happens. And so the audit committee kind of oversees that. Well, not oversees it, but is in contact with the auditors. The auditors will sometimes contact me. They might have a couple of questions, just general type of questions to see if there's anything that I'm aware of or the committee's aware of that might be of interest to them to look at, or if we have any specific concerns, they may ask us about that. And to do that, and then we review, like recently we just reviewed the statements that have been prepared for last year, and we met together with Todd and Curtis and reviewed last year's results and our position on our statements, and that's the tentative numbers that are going to the auditors, and they are working on that right now and proceeding forth and getting through that. So it's just kind of an independent look at, so that we're kind of overseeing it from a management standpoint, so there's some control, so you have more than one set of eyes looking at things, and so it kind of helps keep things in order.
Yeah, and again, I think that's a good thing where Curtis and I and the staff are working with the auditor to get them the numbers, then having the audit committee there to review and ask questions and give that direction to the auditors if there's anything that you feel is important for them to look at. I think it's a very helpful thing, and I think it makes us better as an organization. So, I know that you have a financial background. That's what you do. I mean, how does the audit really help the organization? What function does that audit perform for the organization?
Well, I think mostly it creates a a feeling that things are okay. By law, we have to have the audit, and so it ensures that we're abiding by the law and the rules of that. And it also helps us to know that things are being run correctly according to generally accepted accounting standards and procedures, and so that we're not doing anything that's out of line in, as far as proper procedures. And it assures us that the numbers that were being presented by the staff are correct. They're not holding back anything. The auditors are making sure that everything's out there and that we're in compliance. The other thing is that it ensures compliance with federal and state laws regarding all the funds that we receive. We receive millions of dollars from the federal government and through the state as well. And of course, those must be spent in certain ways. The grants each have certain requirements with them, and so the auditors make sure that that's being dealt with correctly, accounted for correctly, and so that gives us assurance that those things are in order, and gives us that good stamp of approval.
Yeah.
It's been interesting to be involved in this board and on the committee to see how the district works and to understand all the things that have to go on. There's a lot more to it than you might realize, as far as, you know, all the staff that's involved in doing things properly, all of the staff that has to take care of the equipment, the drivers, the office staff and everything. They all do a great job, and we really appreciate all that they do.
Well, thank you, and thanks for your time. And again, we would encourage folks to like and subscribe, and you'll get the latest video. And board members, we encourage you to ask questions. Members of the public, don't be afraid to ask questions. We do want to make sure that we're transparent and open with folks and explaining how we're doing things. As Glenn said, it's a lot more involved than you might think. But thanks for being with us, and we'll catch you next time.